Hey everyone. It's earlier than I planned on coming back to look at this Red series, but I thought the first month of the season gave a good opportunity to talk through something that I think a lot of people get wrong when it comes to analytics and what to expect going forward. So as you can see, right now we're 16 and 5 on the year in first place. We're actually the best team in the league and all the major leagues. And I think there's a few things we can take from this. One, I think at this point, a lot of people, or most people, do understand that when a team starts this hot, they're not going to keep up a 762 winning percentage the rest of the year. Um, but I think a lot of people, if we say the Reds were expected to be a 500 team for the year, I think a lot of people hear regression to the mean or regression and think that means we're going to go 65 in 76 the rest of the year and finish exactly at 500, and that's really not what regression says. If we truly are a 500 team and we take quality competition out of the equation, it would mean we play 500 baseball the rest of the way and we still finish. Obviously, that would be an odd number of games, but 10, 11, 12 games above 500. So obviously, that puts us in a good position to potentially make the playoffs. This 11 game kind of upside to our projection that doesn't go away just because it's not what was expected. And I think that gives us what we do then to try to figure out, you know, are we going to, play 500 ball the rest of the way? Are we going to, like I said, we're not going to keep up 762, but are we going to stay a little bit better than that and keep some of this up? I think you start looking into the individual players and what's driving it. And when you look at our rankings, just pretty dominant offensively, which I think is really unexpected. So that stands out as a red flag from my perspective for the Reds, just given where their strengths are. Obviously, good hitting ballpark, but not a ton of offensive talent outside of a few players. And then looking at the pitching stats, pretty good pitching overall, but mediocre starters and the number one bullpen. So a dominant bullpen can definitely carry a team. It's happened in the past, but I think then you look at which players are really making that bullpen dominant. So pretty much career years from almost everybody, and that's just not going to be sustainable. So that I would say the first big red flag that we're not going to keep this up, that we're going to be closer to a 500 team or worse, is so many players that are going above projections. And if we look even more, and I mean, I guess going back here, third in runs against, but only 12th in FIP, 13th in WAR. Clearly, there's something else going on, and a little bit odd that, again, not really the best defensive team either in Cincinnati. And I think Alexis Diaz gives us a good opportunity to look into some of what can be odd at times. So he was the rookie of the month for the National League, carrying a 0 ERA, 3 wins in 12 innings, only 3 hits against. But he's walked 10 people in 12 and 2/3 innings. There's only struck out 14. I mean, that's a pretty good strikeout number, but not when it's only 1.4 times your walks. I think this is a great example of somebody who has been key to starting out so strong, but is a red flag that it's not going to be sustainable going forward. And then you look at how the offense has gotten runs. Moustakas with 6 home runs is a little surprising. He's been playing well, just not, in recent history, not that big of a power threat. India hitting okay, and same with Votto, not great batting averages, but good power numbers. Those are stand out as sustainable. Stevenson, he's not going to be a 329 hitter, but I think is a good offensive player, so he's not necessarily a red flag that he's hitting so well. But I think you look at Solano, Senzel, and Farmer. There's some talent there, especially Farmer, 31. He's got a little bit of a track record, basically league average. Senzel and Solano. I mean, these aren't really young players that would be expecting to take huge jumps, and yet all three hitting over 300. So again, the fact that we're getting so much production out of the bottom three of the lineup that we wouldn't expect to. Not expected, and if we're looking at this from, if we do take a step back, or if we get to the trade deadline, maybe those are pieces we look to move if one of them can continue this progress. And And then the rotation is maybe the opposite, a little bit worse than we would have expected. We are relying obviously on young players, so not necessarily a shock, but Green's been pretty good, but outside of that, not great performance from the starters. So what I think then, you know, in reality and in the game as a GM, what we have to look to do is then figure out which pieces are sustainable when we look forward to getting to the trade deadline, and then understanding what our team really is and what we should be doing at the trade deadline. So, like I said, if we keep playing 500 ball and we're 11 above 500 as we approach the trade deadline, I think we have to be realistic that we're benefiting from a strong first month. We don't necessarily want to sell off at that point if we're looking at potentially being in the playoffs, but we also don't want to go out and sell a bunch of prospects for a team that is really overachieving and doesn't have a ton of young talent driving it that's going to be able to take a step forward in the playoffs and set it up for the future. So I think we'll come back for the next video around the trade deadline and see where we are, see what decisions we want to make. But like I said, I just wanted to kind of talk through regression to the mean and how it's misunderstood at times. So we'll come back to the trade deadline and see how much of this has continued. Thanks, everyone.